going to talk about gamification being the antidote to modern advertising. So that sounds like quite a bold statement coming from someone that runs a digital marketing agency, that we would need an antidote to modern advertising. But we do. So trust is at an all-time low. So on screen here I've got a couple of headlines, and I won't read them all out, but from various kind of well-regarded websites talking about the fact that people just are not trusting online advertising. So we've got The Drum, people's trust in brands faces the biggest dip since 2008. We've got Marketing Week, arrogance of brand purpose, making consumers distrust ads. There's tons of them, loads of headlines, all talking about the fact that people don't trust advertising anymore. So that is a massive issue for our industry and something that we really need to think about how we can combat. So on top of this, we've also got the rise in ad blockers. So does anyone in the room here use an ad blocker? Yeah, there's a few of you. So in the UK now, we've hit 12 million people. So 22% of the internet users in the UK. I actually use an ad blocker, and I kind of don't mean to. I put it on to test something for a client, and I've just left it on, and it's a really happy world, which is not something I should say running a digital agency. But I mean, there's people here that also run agencies and work in the world and are choosing not to have ads. So this is really scary, because how do we cut through? If people don't want ads, they're ignoring them if they see them, they're trying to stop seeing them, it is really scary. So we did a piece of research. So we spoke to 2,000 UK consumers. We did this back at the beginning of the summer, so this is quite recent data. And this research confirmed this lack of trust. So, we're definitely all on the same page here. So we found 58% of our survey respondents said that online ads and marketing have little or no influence on their buying behaviour. So that's a scary stat, because that's a big chunk of them. 27% said they were only somewhat influenced, and only 5% said they were extremely influenced. And I feel like I'm still one of those 5%, because if my pair of shoes I've been looking at follows me around, I'm probably going to buy it, because it was definitely fate and not remarketing. But it's scary. People are trying not to, and even the people that aren't savvy, that don't necessarily know what's happening and the type of advertising that we can do these days, the people are trying to ignore it. So there's a good story here still though. So young people do admit to being influenced by online advertising. So we've looked at kind of the 16 to 24s, 53% of them were kind of holding up some of those stats, saying that they are influenced by online marketing. So that's good. So we've still got a really young audience there that we can talk to. And then 47% of the 25 to 34s, it's the over 45s where actually only 16% of them are saying it. So they're the ones that are really starting to drop off. I guess they've had many years of being advertised to, and they're really fed up with it. So consumers are becoming numb to our tactics. So we need to constantly reinvent what we're doing and think of new ways that we can reach our audience. Brands need to think about the different touch points in their journey more than they ever have done before, and really think about creating experiences. I think that's the thing that consumers are looking for, and that's part of what our research has backed up, is that people don't just want to see ads telling them to buy stuff. They want to get to know brands, they want to support brands that they're interested in. So building relationships is, in our belief, what's going to cut through that apathy and will win. So I guess we need to talk about how we might do that. In walks gamification. It's like I planned it. So what is gamification? Some of you may or may not know. So it's the borrowing of elements of gameplay, and it's applying them to something that traditionally isn't a game environment or context, but trying to recreate those feelings that we get when we're playing a game and to engage people in that way. So it's a really, and you'll be seeing it more and more. So some of our stats will show you kind of how many people think they recognise it. But actually, Instagram stories, a lot of brands are starting to do it now. So they're putting kind of little quiz things up there that you can interact with. And actually, Instagram's really pushing it in that there's lots of different things you can put on now so you can get people to say yes or no to things. So in the real basic form, that is gamification. I think the examples we'll talk about today are a bit more kind of real brand experiences where the brand's really kind of played around with it. But it is starting to break through. So our research found that consumers who have already experienced gamification are overwhelmingly open to it. So 93% of them say that it's engaging. So that's huge. So that's people that have said, I know what you mean, I've seen it, I like it, keep doing it. Respondents also admitted that this form of marketing does influence their behaviour. So we had 60% of consumers saying that they would be more likely to buy from a brand if they enjoy playing a game with it. So that's a big, big chunk of people. And that rises to 86% for those that have actually experienced gamification before. So the ones that said, yeah, I've seen it, actually 86% of those said, and that would make me more likely to purchase. So that's a really strong statistic. So this is why we believe it's kind of the antidote to consumer apathy in the UK. So why gamify? So consumers are emotional first. That's fact. So we're emotional before we are rational. I've got some quotes here that are just interesting and help back that up. So the fact that we live in a world where we're taught from the start that we're thinking creatures that feel, but actually the truth is that we're feeling creatures that think. So feelings do tend to come first. And then another one, so we don't even think our way to logical solutions, we feel our way to reason. Emotions are the substrate, the base layer of neural circuitry underpinning even rational deliberation. So it's interesting, I was talking to a psychologist the other day, and we were having a conversation around actually, we tend to just make decisions on emotion, and then we back them up later with rationale, only normally if we're asked to, or if we try and think about that decision again ourselves. So everything we're doing is emotional, so actually, why don't we play with emotions more with our consumers? And not in a way of trying to brainwash them, but trying to have experience with them that make them like our brand more. So this is an untapped opportunity. So of the 2,000 people that we spoke to, only 31% said that they'd actually experienced gamification before, and only 16% said that they'd experienced it more than once. And we did at the start of the survey try to give them examples of what we meant by gamification. So hopefully they were kind of on the page of what we were talking about. So this is a massive untapped opportunity. And then bringing that stat back round, 86% of those that had encountered it were more likely to buy. So really positive information. Young people say they are our best opportunity with gamification. So 91% of the 16 to 24 said that they would be open to playing games with a brand. 84% said they would buy from a brand that they enjoy playing a game with. And 61% said that they would keep buying from that brand. So again, some really positive stats there. So anyone in the room that is targeting that younger audience, this really will work with that audience. They are open and receptive. So they also, the same young audience, ranked online games as the most memorable branded activity. So they've put that ahead of online and traditional advertising, they've put it ahead of live games, even live experiences. So this is our future customer, and also they may be 16 to 24 now, but they're going to grow up into those older customers as well, and this is inherent in the way that they're thinking. Female versus male. So those that aren't following the gaming industry might not know that actually women are coming up the ranks in being interested in gaming more so. I think the stereotype is men that do gaming, but that's long dead, and our stats showed that. 76% of women said that they were more open to games from a marketing point of view than men. So again, any people in the audience that are thinking about a female audience, then gamification is definitely an option. So now we're going to go into some neuroscience technobabble. And I'm not a specialist in this, so we'll feel our way through it, and I'll help you out, guys. But I think the first thing to talk about is dopamine, which some of you may or may not know what that does, but it's a neurotransmitter that we all have inside us, and it helps transmit information. So it sends signals from the brain to the muscles in the body to make them move. And it's the one that's really thought about to make people feel good. So it sometimes gets some good press, and it also gets some bad press, and actually sometimes that's from a wrong understanding of it. But it is a really important chemical for making us feel happy and good about the things that we're doing. So dopamine is released during the anticipation of pleasure, whether you do or you don't achieve it. So that's really important. So it doesn't mean you're only going to get this if you win at the game and you're like, yeah, I've done this. You're going to get it as long as you're enjoying yourself. So if you've played a game before, dopamine's there to remind you of that feeling and the achievement, and it helps keep your brain engaged. So our brain's configuration during gameplay is not addictive. So I think people often think that dopamine is part of why people get addicted to games. It's not. It's simply there to help remind us how we managed to reach that high before and how we're going to get there again in future, hopefully. There was a really interesting study that Stanford University did using an MRI-enabled scanner to look at brains while people were playing video games. And actually it saw that the brain lit up in areas associated with kind of rewards, motivation and learning. So these are all signs that people are really focused when they're playing a game and they're making fast decisions at that point. So what a wonderful state for them to be in when we're trying to market to them. It really works. So how do we get gamification right? I'll talk a tiny bit about a case study and I'm going to show you it briefly. So has anyone in the room played our Find 50 game? There's a few of you, there's a few people. If you haven't, I've ruined your next day, I'm sorry, because you're going to have to go and play it. And whether you're a football fan or not, I reckon you'll enjoy it. Is that coming onto the screen? There we go. So this is something we launched in line with the Premiership last season, so 2017 August. And we did it as a test. So this was as Reflect Digital, releasing Find 50. So we had no background in football gaming. We didn't have an audience. I mean, we're an agency, so we've got our clients and our local area as customers and people that might know us, but we're not national in any way from a reach point of view. And the idea of the game is there's 50 clues hidden in there, and you had to find them all. And actually, as long as you know your geography, you're going to be fine with this, because I can do it, and I don't know my football teams. So I'll just show you a real quick example. So I'm going to zoom in on a really easy one, looking for some audience participation. So let's get ready for that, guys. So we've got a swimming pool with black water in it. What could it be? Football club. Blackpool. Yay! So there we go. So the user then literally types in Blackpool, and you can't quite see that, and then it will go, yeah, you were correct. And there's 50 of those. Some are really easy, like Blackpool. Some are a lot harder. So I'm going to come back onto the slides now. You've seen that. But this literally captured a part of the nation. Like, people went mad for this. So in 5 weeks, we had 54,000 unique users playing this game, which that's huge considering we don't have that audience normally. We're not talking to them. We had over 5,000 people, so that's over 10% of them, or about 10%, not over, that created accounts. So they gave us their data because they wanted to save it, because they wanted to keep coming back, because they loved it, they were engaged, they were enjoying it. The engagement was massive, and actually now, a year on, we're over 100,000 users, so people still find it every single day. We still get people asking questions and wanting help, etc. And this was just all off of the back of having a really kind of well planned out strategy around how we'd get it out there. We managed to get featured on Sport Bible, so that was day one of it. We got them to feature it, and that was huge. Our traffic literally soared, and Planet Football was another really big one for us. They were all obviously helpful. And we managed to get 2 award nominations, one of which was the Search Awards. So this also had a massive SEO benefit. So within the same day, I think, that we launched the game, we ranked for football games or football quizzes. Like, how did that happen? That shows how real-time Google is these days. And that was all because we got some really strong links, and it was a really relevant page, and Google picked up on it. So from a search point of view, obviously we long-term aren't really excited about ranking for football games. That's not what we do. But it's helped all of our traffic. So I think we've seen, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, about a 25% rise in all organic.
Yeah, initially it was about, for the first 2 months afterwards, excluding all of the 150 traffic, it was actually about 40% increase.
40%, so huge.
Now it's about, 25.
Yeah. And that was from the strength of the links coming back. So in a minute, when I talk about goals, SEO is definitely a goal you can have from gamification. So that was Find 50. We've now done 3 of these. So we've got Find 50 clubs, we've got Find 50 players. That's really hard. You do need to know your football for that, because they're players from all World Cups ever in any country. Good luck. I literally couldn't do it. And we've also did one for Betfair, and actually that literally came off of the back of the fact that they loved Find 50 clubs, and they were like, we need to do one. They did theirs on horse racing, so really difficult again. You probably got more chance with the players one. So what do users like though? So going back to our research, the top game choices were knowledge-based games, so people love to challenge the brain, and 23% was puzzle-type games, and then the rest of them were kind of a lot smaller amounts, and that was kind of chance-based or hand-eye coordination, that type of thing. But people love to use their knowledge to prove they're good, to challenge themselves. That's what they're interested in. So games do need to be part of an integrated strategy. You can't literally say, right, let's go and launch a game, done. mic drop, it's going to happen. It's not. You've got to think about how are we going to engage people and get them interested in the game, and how are we going to keep them interested afterwards if we want to get a final result out of it as well. I think one of the key things is that you're holding attention. So you could say to a brand, oh, well, you could do like a TV advert and people will watch that, or radio, they're going to listen to that. But they're not engaged. They're not in that awesome state that we talked about that we get in when we're playing a game. They're just receiving that information whilst probably dual screening and doing something else. Whereas actually, if you're in a game, we're not going to fill it with branding, that's a bad idea, but they'll know your brand will be at the start and at the end, and they'll know that it was because of your brand that they were playing that game. So by getting it right and having the powerful kind of ad campaign around it, it really is that kind of 1-2 punch for getting results. So yeah, the point I made around kind of 30 seconds watching an ad, that engagement is just so completely different to playing a game. And I think, again, Find 50 was a particular type of game. You got 50 clues, that's not a quick game. But we managed, our average time on site was 12 minutes, which for those of you that look at analytics, that's huge. But actually 15% of people spent over 40 minutes. I mean, that's massive. They've really committed. People were creating WhatsApp groups, they were in forums talking about it. They got really involved, which we're not saying that a game has to be like that to get results, but that's what that type of game did. But lots of brands throw away money. They do. They end up with really, and I've seen some really rubbish games recently where people are trying to do it really cheap, or they're like, oh, this will be fun and engage people. And then it's just a bit of a poor experience and it's not very interesting. Or they're overselling. They're like, oh, buy our product. And actually, since we've done this and we've been pushing gamification, we've had a couple of meetings with some really big brands, people like Jägermeister and people like that. But they really wanted it working around their shop and around their products. And it's like, guys, that's not going to win. That's just going to make people not be interested long term. So, do's and don'ts, so things to think about, the do's. So, have multiple campaign goals. So what we mean by that is, think about, one of your goals might be data capture. So data capture is huge, that's really important to us as brands, and if we can get people bought in and handing over their data that we can use, and they've said, yes, we can use it, then that's amazing. So that's kind of your minimum level that you're looking for. It might also be social media follows, so you might be saying, well, actually, if you want a bit of help with this game, you need to follow us on social. Obviously, the ultimate goal is going to be some kind of return on investment. We want them to buy more with our brand, but that's going to be a longer journey. That's not going to happen overnight just because they played your game. They're not going to hit your online shop and buy something. But by making sure you've got lots of different campaign goals that you can track throughout, you'll be able to kind of see that it's working. Consider your audience. So if you've got a broad audience, don't try and appeal to them all. Think about a real kind of good subset that are going to work with that game concept. So for example, ours being a football game, that is an audience that we know loves gaming traditionally. We know they're interested. We know they love to prove, I know the most about football. That's what guys do in the pub, isn't it? Oh, I know this, and oh, I know this. So you get them into that arena, then they're going to love it. So don't try and appeal to everyone. Really think about kind of a core audience. Conduct research and tests, so you really need to make sure it's going to hit home and that you're not going to waste your money. So really trying to get your core audience to then have a go at playing the game before you launch it, or testing out some of the ideas. So for example, the Find 50 Players one, because we knew how difficult that was going to be, we really did test some of those clues out on a good audience of football fans that we knew were real fanatics, and actually it made us take some of the clues out and swap them out because we were like, we're making it too hard. You make it too hard, you'll lose them. Think about motivation. So interestingly, our first Find 50 game, we had a prize draw. After 1 month, we were going to pick one winner, and it was like £150, something like that. I was excited to send the email, you're the winner. And he literally responded saying, I didn't even know there was a prize. Like, people were not playing the game because they wanted to win a prize. They were playing it for the glory of, I want to get all 50 clues before my mate does. I literally love playing this game. So thinking about motivation, thinking about leaderboards, things like that, it doesn't have to be a monetary prize. For some games it might do, and especially if it's less of a testing their expertise. You just really got to think about the motivation of the individual and kind of get behind what's going to get them interested. Consider achievements, so what's going to happen at different stages. We're planning a game with Caesars Entertainment at the moment, which is really exciting. And we've got different levels so that at least they feel like they're getting through something and they're getting something at each point. Think about tracking. So how can you track everything? You could do biometrics on it. It'd be nice to really see how it's working. But using like Google Data Studio and Google Tag Manager to make sure you've tagged everything up so that you can see how people are interacting and you can learn from it. Because if this works for you, you're going to want to do more of these. So really think about all those different metrics. Think about how you're going to get the traction. What's the strategy? So that leads in nicely to thinking about journalists and influential bloggers. Can you get a sneak preview out to them? Before you even start thinking about launching it, what sites are really going to work? Where would you get the right coverage for your audience? Plan that all in advance and start teeing up people and saying, we've got this awesome game launching. Would you cover it for us? How can we get it out there? We put, I think we put like £150 in Facebook ads, which was nothing really, but that generated quite a bit of buzz as well. So think about it as an overall campaign before you launch. Consider all devices, so that people are going to use it on multiple different devices now, so make sure it's going to work. And consider a series of games. So one game, you're going to learn a lot, like the agency that you work with, the team around you can give lots of different findings and thoughts about it. But actually, if it's part of a series where you can take your learnings from game 1, put them into game 2 and maybe even to game 3, it's just going to get better and better and it's going to work better for that audience. The don'ts, don't make it too sales focused, I've told you that. Don't make it too complicated, keep them engaged. Don't data capture too early, so really think about what point are they going to be comfortable to hand their data over to me. When we did Find 50, we actually didn't even try and push it. We just said, if you want to save your progress, you can. And we got 10% of people willing to give us their data. For future ones that we're doing for other brands, we are actually going to push data capture maybe a bit earlier, but they'll be more bought in and they'll want to continue. The data was less important to us. Don't try to appeal to everyone, I've covered that. Whose games? So these just go back to the stats. So we asked people to pick which sectors that they'd be most interested in playing a game with. So probably the ones we'd expect come out on top: entertainment, TV, food, restaurants, fashion, those kind of brands. Interestingly, like betting and casinos actually came down lower, but that could also be around the fact that they want to just play the games that are going to get them the money at that point. So yeah, interesting stats there. But it goes further than engagement. It isn't just about that. It's humanizing your brand. It's creating an experience where the user's going to get involved and they're working within your brand to have a bit of fun, and they're going to be sharing it, talking about it. It can give you insights into your customers. So if you want to get really clever, you might plan your games so that actually, well, there's different routes they might go. And based on route A, that tells me that customer is more of this type of customer. So in future, I'm going to do this with that customer. And route B tells me they're this type of customer. Let's use that data in that way. So again, that all comes down to making sure you've tagged it up properly and we can track that through, but that could work really well. Return on investment, it can lead to that and it will lead to that, but again, you've got to give it time. It's not going to be overnight. GDPR, the data, sorry, it's like a swear word, isn't it, in the marketing world? But making sure you've got new, fresh data that's compliant is really important. And it's that relationship building, rather than saying to your customer, come to this page and buy some stuff from us, or come and do this because we want to sell to you. We're actually saying, just come and have a bit of fun with us as a brand. This is something we enjoy, you'll enjoy it too. So, games are highly engaging and they can create a real positive effect on consumer behaviour, and you should all try them out, and that's basically it.